We're going to go ahead and get started. So everyone who is joining live or watching the recording, welcome. This is Netsertive's May 2026 live panel webinar. I am joined with three franchising powerhouses, some amazing women who will share their backgrounds in just 1 second, and excited to hear all of their insights and thoughts as we are walking through a very hot topic in the franchise space right now, but I think always, but I think right now, especially with the resurgence of AI and how individual brands are having to really work on their tech stacks and make sure that they're serving both their franchisees and their corporate goals the best. So our topic today is all around that franchise marketing tech stack, what you actually need and what you don't need potentially, based on the feedback of some of our expert panelists. So we are very excited to get started today. First off, before we jump in, a little bit about Netsertive if you are unfamiliar with the brand. Netsertive is a digital marketing partner really built for franchise and multi-location brands. And so we help national networks really win locally by combining data, automation, and hands-on expertise from our award-winning customer experience teams. Our platform works to connect corporate marketing strategies with local execution, all with the goal of driving stronger visibility, better leads, and measurable ROI for every individual location and franchisee that we work with. And so to start us off here, we work with a lot of brands that have some incredible tech stacks. We work with some that are rebuilding tech stacks. And we have three panelists today who I know have done lots of work in the franchise space with marketing and tech stacks and ensuring that franchisees are supported in the very best ways by the Martech that they use day to day. And so I'm excited to have our panelists all introduce themselves and give a little bit of background on who they are and their experience in franchising. Laura, I'm going to start with you, and then we'll go to Brooke and then Liz from there.
Awesome. Thank you, Gabby. Hi, everyone. I am the head of marketing at Sportball. We are an emerging purpose-led brand that help kids build their confidence and competence through multi-sport play. So really that they can stay active for a lifetime. As a multi-sport athlete myself, it's a cause really near and dear to my heart. And I am based out of Toronto, Canada, and we're a brand that's actively expanding across the US. I'd say I'm a bit of a dark horse. I'd say on this panel, I'm a little green to franchising. So I come from consumer e-com world where, tech stacks were quite simple. And coming into the franchising world and realizing the, challenges and opportunities that, the franchising world faces are drastically different. So I have a lot of empathy as we're going to talk more about, the complexities of getting the stock right. But I think I'll bring a unique perspective to the conversation today. So I'm excited to get chatting with these ladies.
Awesome.
I am Brooke Janousek, and I am in Fort Worth. I am a fractional CMO, so I have 20 years experience, well, more than 20, but we'll leave it at that, in advertising and marketing, and then over a decade in franchising. A lot of home services experience and franchising. I was the CMO at Garage Experts. Prior to the role that I'm in right now, I'm a fractional CMO for IV Nutrition. So I have home services and health and wellness experience. And then I was also at Liberty Tax. So I've been at brands. I've had 1,500 locations and brands that are emerging with 40 locations. So really excited to talk with everyone today and to be on this panel. So thank you.
Awesome.
Right. Hi, everyone. I'm Liz Wahl. I am newly appointed president here at Young Rembrandts franchise. We are children's services. We're going to take your kids after school and teach them how to draw 1 day a week. Our franchisees, it's a home-based model. They're operating in their communities. It's a really passion-focused business. Prior to being president, I was our director of marketing for many years, and I have been here, I just shared, like 18 years at Young Rembrandts, and held a lot of different roles, but marketing is really my heart. So I'm so excited to kind of geek out with you ladies and talk marketing stacks. Let's go.
Awesome. I love it. Great energy here on a Thursday as we're recording this. So I'm super excited about this topic. I think everyone has a lot of passion about it because I think most brands right now, whether you're emerging or you're established, are taking a look at their tech stack with so many different platforms and modules and systems coming to the forefront of marketing tech. And I think at some point, a lot of brands get overwhelmed by it. And I think in the last decade, especially, franchise marketing teams have added more tools than ever before to their stack. So it's ad platforms, CRM, POS, call tracking, analytics dashboards, and then, of course, all these AI tools that we're trying to incorporate as well. Brands are getting a little bit bogged down by technology, I think, in more cases than not. And for a lot of these brands, adding more tech hasn't necessarily made marketing easier. They're dealing with fragmented data, disconnected reporting, and a lot of things that are hurting the efficiency of the business, not just marketing strategies. And so I think the challenge that we want to discuss here today really isn't whether franchise brands have enough technology, because I think we can all agree there's probably more tech than we need sometimes, but it's whether their systems are actually working together to support smarter decisions for the business. And so that is where I'm so excited to tap in to our panel of experts today and their experiences, starting off with defining the problem that we're all experiencing. And so, Brooke, I'd love to start with you on this one, just with your experience working in multiple industries and working in both a CMO and a full-time brand position. Where have you seen franchise tech stacks become overly complicated or harming the business more than helping them?
That's a great question. I think, you know, regardless of the brand or how many units they have, I see most often like the tech stack and the systems scaled faster than the infrastructure could support. And I think they, you know, hey, we don't have a good structure in place from an operations standpoint. We'll throw this tool at it, and we'll throw this tool at it. And it kind of starts to, no pun intended, stack on top of each other. And if you don't have a good structure in place, then all you're doing is just building on top of the chaos. One of the brands that I worked for had hundreds of locations, and there were hundreds of agency partners. I think when we both came into the role, we had like 100 partners that we had to kind of pare down and say, okay, this group was doing this, and nobody was measuring the same thing. There wasn't the same dashboards. And so I find that, you know, if you haven't scaled appropriately or haven't slowed down to kind of put the right infrastructure in place, you're just kind of building chaos on top of chaos. And there are just some basic fundamentals that we should all go back to. And I feel like we've sort of lost that, not only just in marketing, but in business. We've lost like, hey, we need to be back to the fundamentals before we start throwing tools on top of things.
Yeah, 1,000%. And Laura, I know you mentioned it before this call that you guys are in the process as a brand of really reviewing your tech stack and figuring out what makes the most sense. What were some of the biggest signs that you guys saw that your brand's tech and systems maybe were no longer working together effectively that made you start that process of, you know, analyzing what your tech stack is and where you want to go forward from here?
Yeah, well, Gabby, I loved your framing of the discussion here today, where it's not about like the conversation of more tech or less tech, and it's really about the tech that's going to get us to better decision making. And I think when I got my hands on Sportball, it was interesting. We really weren't structured, to be completely honest, as a franchise business. We didn't have tools that would help. We were using basically single location tools for multi-location brand, and nothing was working. And I think one of the biggest challenges, and we can double click into this further where appropriate, was that we were using a white label product for our single source of truth, which is our CRM, our registration software. And so we had no control. And I think that was, you know, the biggest thing that was broken. And our CEO is a real tech visionary. And, you know, he had the foresight to see what was coming down the pipe and also say, you know, if we're going to start anywhere, we're going to start here. And so we rebuilt our own registration platform. It was a labor of love. We broke a lot of things. And so that was a challenge. And we can also get into that, how hard change is for anyone, let alone within a massive franchise system. But that probably was one of, you know, on our journey to creating a more evolved tech stack has been one of the most, you know, fundamental changes that we could make. And it is leading to now, it's like a cascade effect of all the things that the capabilities that we have and potential open to us in terms of the tools that we can partner with them and how seamless we can integrate, which we just didn't have control of before.
Yeah, 1,000%. And I think that the big thing that you mentioned is that pain point of, geez, we have this tech stack now and we know it's not probably great, but what is it going to cost for us to actually overhaul this and make an effective tech stack? And who are the parties that are going to be most impacted, right? It's, of course, the corporate marketers, the franchise marketers who are probably on this call and listening, but it's also our franchisees and the people who are going to have to be living in these systems to run their day-to-day business. And so, Liz, I want to tap on you for that because I know that you've had so many different roles in your company. You've also been with your franchisees for so long as well. And so how have you seen disconnected tech really impact franchisees at that local level, especially?
I think this isn't necessarily a marketing or a technology thing, but I think it impacts their buy-in overall with the brand. And, I think, Laura, where you were saying like you were able to kind of pinpoint like a starting point and that being your source of truth, your CRM and registration tool, I think that in itself is such a good takeaway of like, where do you start when you're overhauling? Where do you start even when you're analyzing? Because that affects the rollout, that affects the timing of connecting and disconnecting your tools. And if it's not done in the right way, then your franchisees are going to have a struggle in their day-to-day life. And that's going to affect your buy-in. That's going to affect your culture. It ripples really across the whole organization.
Yeah, 100%. Brooke?
I want to chime in on that. I was writing down exactly what you're saying, Liz, because currently we're in a situation at IV Nutrition where because we've had so many different agencies, all of the reporting is different. And so it makes it very hard for anyone to trust the data. So if a franchisee calls and says, hey, XYZ clinic said they're doing this, but I don't see these numbers, it's hard for me in my role to say, well, I don't have a single source of truth. And then again, it erodes trust because they're like, well, if you don't know, it's because we don't have like a very clean point of data to point to and say, hey, this is what everyone is, seeing for their customer acquisition costs. This is what everyone's seeing for conversion rates because there's 9 different agencies tracking things differently. So I agree, like that erodes trust pretty quickly.
And to layer on to that, I will say like the amount of data across all of these tools, it's not like the lack of data, it's the right data. And the number of, tools that shall remain unnamed that I've chatted with as of late, like we've got an open API on our CRM and the fact, so I can push you, if you can accept it, our, registration data, and we can package it with our development team, however you need it. We can't get our conversion data, for example, into an email platform. You can tell me how many people clicked on this email. To be frank, I don't really care how many people clicked on it. Did it move the needle for my business?
Yeah.
And the fact that, those kind of metrics that make, the difference in the business case, with respect to franchisees as well, how you get the adoption is showing them the real impact on their business. And, the fact that those numbers the tools aren't inherently designed around the collection of that kind of data is surprising to me. So it puts marketers in a tough position when there's no real perfect tool that you can buy off the shelf. And then that decision to, build or buy has some, real cost benefits associated with it.
1,000%. And with that, Brooke, you mentioned too that I think is really connected to what Laura just said in the sense that even like agency partners or partners that you guys utilize to help service your franchisees, they have their own tech. So it may not even be your internal tech stack, but you're working with multiple tech stacks trying to get data that you need. And so how do you approach that partnership aspect of if you have 3 preferred partners for a paid media agency, for example, how do you keep that data as clean as possible? Do you have them work in your ecosystem? Do you work in theirs? What have you seen as either adding more complexity or being the best case scenario for a brand in that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I've been in this role with IV Nutrition for about 6 months now. And one of the first things was, okay, if these are the partners we're working with, I'm going to evaluate, okay, which becomes 2 or 3 that are preferred. But then went in and said, okay, this is Google Tag Manager. This is exactly how we want it set up. We actually started a new container. So we just said, forget the old one. We're starting over. This is what everyone needs to do. Then we, as the franchisor, will grant the agency access. And we actually created almost like I don't know, not an SOP, but like an agreement letter that I sent to the agencies to say, this is how you're going to track because I need universal, like I need everybody singing from the same sheet of music. So you'll sign and agree that these are the events that you're going to, set up. And this is the how I want the dashboard set up so that when a franchisee calls, they can say, hey, my agency said this, and then this agency said that, and now they're all the same. So we got that set up properly. We cleaned up all of our events in GA4 and really, saying this is also our POS system, and this is where the reports are coming from. And these are the 3 reports I'm always going to pull from. And this is what you guys report on out to the franchisees to prove ROI.
I love that. That's so collaborative and such a better way to manage vendors than just saying, okay, you guys do your thing. Like, you're experts in your own place. Like,
Yeah.
be expert for your brand.
It's been an undertaking for sure, but the agency partners have been really receptive, and I think probably gave them a little bit of relief that, okay, there's some direction here.
1,000%.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Brooke, that sounds like a because we are do something similar. We'll bring them into our ecosystem, and then from there, we kind of take it back and we'll figure out the reporting because we're the owners of the tools. But I'm taking that idea, Brooke. Thank you. Hopefully, everybody else
I'll
got the SOP.
Yeah, I'll share it with you, Liz. I'll share it with you.
Because what
It's
if
a
I
labor
use
of love.
tool to give your vendors of like, this is what we want. Like, you can't strike out with us if you're serving us exactly what we want, and we're going to tell you what that is. What a
Correct.
fabulous
Exactly.
takeaway already.
Yeah.
That is a great idea. We've also resorted to drawing from the brand fund to fund like fewer, better tools to bring everyone along for the ride so that we are just standardizing the tools that we're using across the network where it's possible. And for the most part, I think that's been met with, positive reception from the franchisees. It also helps us to make, it forces us as the marketers at corporate to really weigh, again, the cost benefit analysis. Like, are we choosing the right tool? Do our due diligence. Does it integrate seamlessly with our system? I attended a really great keynote at the IFA this year in Vegas with Kat Cole, where she was talking about innovation and change within a franchise system. And, there were some great ideas that really stuck with me, and we've implemented in terms of how we bring our franchisees along for the ride. So having them be part of the pilot groups, even involving them in the demos when we're considering a new tool, whether it's like an RFP or where we're having different vendors come in and demonstrate their capabilities. We bring a small consortium of our franchisees to the table to weigh in. What are we missing? How do you see things from your end to just try and increase the likelihood of adoption and get everyone on the same system? They can sell into the system. We try and make them whole too for their participation in pilot programs. So taking all of those, not my principles, but from Kat Cole, and that seems to be helping. Any initiative where we've made the transition to a new tool that is streamlining, getting rid of other tools and trying to create, I guess, the behavior that we would like from our franchise network, that we've had the most luck when it's funded, not in addition to the investments that they already make in their business.
Yeah.
I love it. Fewer, more impactful tools. I think if there's one takeaway that I'm hearing from everyone here, it's how do you make the biggest impact with the most concise and integrated tech stack possible. So I love that. Moving on from a little bit about the problem to a little bit more about the solution. And so I know as marketers, if we could start from scratch, sometimes it feels easier than trying to overhaul a broken system. So Liz, I want to start with you here. If you were building a franchise marketing tech stack from scratch today, what would be your number one first non-negotiable for creating that stack and making that infrastructure?
Oof. I think when I'm evaluating a stack or if I'm building something, I really need it to be user friendly. And that is like back to basics. I am looking for how hard is it going to be able to learn? And then how am I going to teach my staff and my trainers and our franchisees how they're going to use it? So, what really needs to be included is the usability. Maybe it's a great dashboard, maybe it's a user-friendly interface, but like that is ultimately really the first thing that we're going to be looking at. And it can't be overly complicated, because then we're just right back at question one. I don't enjoy reading that data. It's not working for me. Or if it is, I can't tell because I can't figure out how to plug it in or how to do the reporting.
1,000%. I love that. I think usability from a franchise system, I think more than anything, is the biggest indicator of if my franchisees use this and see value in it, then the funding aspect becomes very easy because you can figure
Right.
if they see the value, then they understand why it costs money and why you're putting investment towards it. So I think that's huge. Laura, any thoughts on your end from as you guys are building this marketing tech stack?
And we are, yeah. So we're very much in the thick of this question, and I am very lucky to have license to like not blow things up, and then but really think about things from scratch. And the way that I do like to think about tech stack is in terms of not so much the tools, but the capabilities that we need. And as we're entering this, brave new world, I mean, I don't think, call my bluff here, but I don't think we're so far off from a world where marketing is shifting from primarily, brands to humans, from and more towards, LLMs and customer agents. And so, the capabilities we're going to need, I'm thinking about what capabilities we're going to need to compete in that kind of world. And I really don't think we're, all that far off. So for me, I think it goes back to having that like single source of truth, that data layer that, can integrate seamlessly, with other tools of your choosing, or tools that you'll be able to develop much more cost effectively, faster, better, with AI tools that are rapidly becoming available. They're already here. We're already doing it. So it's not sci-fi. As well as that, I think that like closed loop attribution piece that I was talking about earlier about, it's like, it's not about the clicks, it's about the revenue by location. And if you don't have that piece and you can't attribute, gains to a specific location, you can't make the business case, and then you can't determine, what it is that's moving the needle, especially when you have a whole bunch of tools. So I think, just simplifying in that way to focus on what really, really matters, and then building around that.
Right. I would say along the same lines as Liz, usability, but maybe even just a little step further too is the clarity over capability. So I feel like now, like everyone's going to throw a ton of bells and whistles at you, and fine, like that's great if you have those capabilities. But really, to Laura's point, we need the single source of truth, especially for data. I walked into systems where one department was, reporting from GA4, one was reporting out of our ERP, and the numbers didn't match. So then we would get into a meeting with the CEO, and he's, it's like that Spider-Man meme because we're both pointing at each other. It's like, and so it's like, okay, no, so clarity. So which tool is going to provide clarity? So we all agree on the single source of truth. Everybody needs a CRM or a POS, and it needs to reflect the customer journey, not just your lead collection. I am a huge proponent of call tracking. And if anything, I can say, like, again, we're getting back to basics. So do you have call tracking? Do you have a CRM? And do you have clear governance over accounts? So back to what I said earlier, like, here's the governance, here's who gets the ownership of the ad accounts, here's who gets read rights, here's who gets to set it up this way. And all of that will help get that clarity, because more tools don't create clarity, the structure does. So that's where I would start. And one little thing, like as I'm branching out, so we just implemented AI agents for IV nutrition. We're using agent marketing for that. And it has been incredible how we can talk to customers at scale. So the number of conversations that our agent has had in the last quarter is way more than we could ever field over the phone or in person. And so we're getting these questions, and then I'm using it to send to our agency to say, create content around this, because these are the 5 questions people are asking. Then I send it to the franchisees and say, you're always asking me, what should I create for a reel? Here are 5 reels right now. Like 5 questions people ask, go create the reel right now based on this. And so it's allowing us to get that customer insight at scale and then make business decisions. And we're even seeing, like, for example, there was like 60 queries for a very specific service that we don't offer. And so I took it to the CEO and was like, hey, there's a market right now. Like, let's, and he's like, oh, a couple of our locations are testing that. And I was like, great, like maybe we should roll it out to more. So that would be like the next thing. Like, if from the basics, I'm starting to throw agents into the basics now.
Right. Hey, it's coming to that point, right? Where now is a given. It's not a fun thing as an add-on. It's a non-negotiable. I think that's sort of I think one thing, Brooke, you mentioned too, which I love the concept of, and I think Liz, this may be something that relates to you as well, in the sense that we're talking about Martech here, right? Like marketing technology stacks. I think franchises are moving away from siloed operations, marketing, training stacks, and trying to find more incorporated ways to ensure that data is consistent across every department at the corporate level so that we're all coaching franchisees on the same thing. And so has that been any experiences there across the three of you guys as far as like Martech versus business tech, and where do we make sure that we have the marketing skills and capabilities that we need and the tools that we need for that, while also ensuring that the business as a whole has accurate data that we're able to pull off of, whether it's revenue or ROAS or whatever that may be?
We haven't solved for this per se in terms of like a tool that does a great job, but it is in the works behind the scenes. But I do know I feel so strongly about this one, and I've written about it on LinkedIn before about, marketing and operations needing to be in sync, and all of our franchise businesses are, very heavily operational. And if the marketing doesn't work at the operational level, and you're not getting that feedback, it's just the way you get that feedback, I guess, is in terms of lack of utilization of the tools, and then you don't have the data to make good business decisions, and it all falls down. So I work very closely with our head of operations in any of our business planning calls to not just have him review the sales data, setting those OKRs with respect to the financial aspects of the business, but integrating the data from our marketing tools into that conversation, bringing them to the forefront. And it does, as I'm saying, it allowed present another challenge is if the Marcom like data isn't at the forefront for our franchisees, they're not looking at it on the daily because it's passing through agencies or it's passing through headquarters, and they're not seeing it in their day to day, and they're not able to speak the language. It makes it really hard again to justify why they should be using the tool, the value of the tool. And so it's definitely something that we struggle with, but just bringing the data that we have from marketing to the forefront of those business planning conversations has really started to be transformational. It's the first time we've really had, some of our legacy franchisees nodding their head, asking, deep questions about how do I do this? How do I learn, get started in my market? So it's not a solution really per se, but it's a thought, at least within our business, of how those two functions just have to be completely in sync.
I love it. That aha moment is more valuable sometimes than I think we give it credit for. So that is where learning really comes into play for franchisees, and you build that trust around your tech stack, which is super valuable. One thing we've mentioned a lot across the course of the call is that integrations, data, and visibility across the network. And so when talking about integrations, do you guys have any, whether it's with a CRM, it's a POS system, or even I think somebody mentioned the fact that like click data on an email is not as valuable as me knowing, I think Laura, that might have been you, like the ROAS or the actual revenue generated from that email marketing. And so what integrations are table stakes now that we absolutely have to have as marketers in order to actually be able to make sure that we understand the value that these platforms are bringing us, but also ultimately, are they driving success for our business? And so, Laura, I'm going to pick on you because I know that was something I pulled from you that you said, but why are integrations so important in a franchise environment for you guys?
Well, I think in the franchise environment, I've learned very quickly you're accountable to so many business leaders, right? It's not just corporate that is making decisions and has to be on board. And so when you're trying to navigate, within a multi-unit business structure, you have to have, the data that matters at the forefront to be able to have informed conversations about your business. And me trying to have a conversation with a franchisee, in their market, and trying to point to clicks as the reason that they should, revitalize their email strategy that they've been using, in their market for how many years, it's not really all that helpful. But when I can point to metrics that hit, the bottom line, then I have their attention. And so I think, for me, table stakes has really become, what the conversion data for for us, it's the registration piece. And it doesn't get much more. It's not the be all and end all. Of course, we need to understand our efficiency of our ad spend. I think that's the other really important thing to me. But that has been the thing that has been able to move the needle. And I'm still surprised how few platforms are paying attention to that piece, even if it's hard.
Yeah.
I'll follow up with Laura on that, because I mean, ditto in all of those things. But I know that when we were with a certain partner, we're not currently with them anymore, but we were doing the visibility into the conversion rate. We were able to take our just for example, we were doing retargeting advertising, right? And we're able to see for X amount of dollars that we spent out of our national marketing fund, the franchisees, you guys made X amount of dollars in registrations. And just that direct dollar for dollar comparison and that result just makes every decision go so much easier. Yes, we want to keep that partnership. Yes, we want to keep doing that advertising, like that again. And it goes back into my original comment about that buy-in. Yes, we're on board. We build that trust. The conversion data, I think, is just so important and so unreal that if you guys haven't cracked that yet in your brand or in your franchise, whoever is watching, dig into your partners and figure out, let's get that. Let's see that. I want to see that.
It's a good call to action. Sorry to jump in, Brooke, but for everyone who is on the call, it is, I think, as industry leaders, we do have to jump in and make that point known, because it's the only way that the tools and partners will get better. Sorry, Brooke, over to you.
One thing I'll say on the data and visibility, what I've experienced in the current system and in the previous system I was in, yes, on the conversion data, everybody wants to know, okay, where did our leads come from? But the platform is going to take credit for what it did. Google's going to take credit for what it did, and Meta's going to take credit. And then you're sitting in front of your franchisee and they want to cut Meta because it's not showing the conversion. And so it's like, okay, we have to educate them that there was an assist here. And if you cut off the top of the funnel, it's going to affect your bottom of the funnel. So one of the tools that we implemented at my previous role where I was CMO was a tool called Roivenue. It's ROIVENUE. So return on investment of your revenue, kind of a weird name. But our agency helped us implement it. And if your system is ready for it, it's multi-touch attribution, and it uses AI to assign the percentage to each platform. So Meta could say, hey, I'm taking this much credit, when in reality, it only gets this much credit. But it really started to open our franchisees' eyes to, I think they knew it, because I always say, hey, you're a consumer too. Like, think about how you behave when you shop and how many different places you go before you convert. When it's their money and they're investing in marketing and they don't see the actual conversion from that actual thing, they're like, okay, Meta's dead. But if you start to show the visibility of, hey, it took 11 touch points before they converted, and if you cut out any of those, think of how much longer it's going to be. Like, we're trying to get conversions quick here, people. So I think that was like a really good tool that we used to show, hey, like, this is the data and you can't really argue with it. Because I don't know, I see you nodding, Liz, and you, Laura, too, and you, Gabby, like, you're on the agency side. Like, people want to cut things when it's not showing the exact conversion. It's like, no, they work together. Hold on.
Yeah, right. That whole, like, it takes a village, right? It's absolutely, it still takes a village. You got to make sure you're not, you're really looking at it from that like 5,000-foot view. And I think that's our job as, the leaders in our marketing departments or your agencies. Like, if you guys don't have that, you guys need to poke your agency and go find one, or go encourage them to see that data, because it's there. You just need to get the right partner or the right tool. The right
And Liz, I love your path to presidency. Like, we're seeing so many CEOs and presidents come up through a marketing role, and I love it, because having a leader in place that understands that is so advantageous for the system and for your marketing leaders themselves. It's sometimes an uphill battle to educate sometimes on these things. And so I just love that you have that background, and I know you're Your marketing team probably just adores you that you have that background.
Well, I will say thank you. I was talking with somebody last week about it, and he was saying like, well, what was it about marketing that kind of you feel like helped you? And I was like, marketing and technology are so linked, and everything that your business touches in 2026 is linked to probably both of those things. So I think having that experience in marketing really did give me the foundation to really understand so much of how everything puzzles together that, like it's so important. You got to take a look at that data and understand the day to day of what your marketing is doing for you and how it impacts that business.
So good. You guys just like had your own little thing. I love it. I think, Brooke, you took the words out of my mouth on the concept of making data actionable and helping franchisees to understand rather than having it be really overwhelming or having there be such big holes that they don't allow the data to be attributed to the right platforms to understand that full funnel strategy. And I think unfortunately, I'm going to segue over to AI because you guys can't get out of competition and marketing lately without AI. But I think with the resurgence of AI and how these platforms are changing the consumer journey, there are so many things before that I think we would coach franchisees on, whether it's responding to reviews or keeping listings up to date. All of these things that were basics before are now holding so much more importance in the customer journey of being able to find, discover, and trust a brand online. And so I think our tech stacks are starting to expand more as brand marketers are finding those platforms and initiatives are so much more important. And so I know Brooke already mentioned agent marketing and working with that with your current brand. Brooke, anything else on AI that you've seen be very successful, adding AI to a tech stack to operationalize and make stronger rather than tacking it on like we talked about and just making it a whole other platform to have to consume and understand?
Yeah. I have two answers, and one of them isn't really a question you asked, but I think it's
You're
adjacent.
good.
So I do think the agents, not only on your site, but having some sort of lead scoring with AI. So on, reading call transcripts, and you can give it a dictionary, and if they say certain words, then that raises the score and things like that, and it can assign a value. So if somebody called in to have their flooring redone and they mentioned cabinetry, well, then now that lead just became more expensive than the flooring one. So I do think there's a lot of really cool stuff from a call center perspective that you can use AI for, and helping with speed to lead. I will say something that we encountered this week at IB Nutrition, and I wrote about it on LinkedIn this week, is we had a franchisee reach out to us in marketing and say, hey, the AI overview is wrong, fix it. And I was like, well, I can't really fix it, and because it's pulling from everything, but can you show me, like, give me the screenshot so I can see what the sources are? Maybe we go fix the source if it's something on our site that's wrong or whatever. Well, it was pulling from Instagram because it can pull from anywhere. And it was pulling an old offer. And so I was like, oh my gosh, like it can go back as far as it wants. Like somebody searched this. And so I sent out an email to the system. I was like, we're no longer just like coming up with content. We have to govern our content as well. And so you need to put expiration dates on your posts. If you have an organic post that's talking about an offer, please put an expiration date because LLMs are pulling it. But the other thing we discovered is I tried to recreate the overview. Chris tried to recreate the overview, and we did it on mobile, and all three of us got different results. So it's the AI overviews, and Aaron Martin confirmed this on my post. AI overviews are also tailored to the individual. So even the franchisee, he saw it and it was wrong, but it wasn't wrong for me. So it's just like crazy, like how we're building this plane as we fly it. And we keep like, oh, now we've got to learn this. We've got to learn this. And as a marketer, I've got to learn this, but then I've got to tell my franchisees, this is, don't worry about this, don't worry about that. And it's the most intense thing that I've ever experienced in my career, to be honest. And I've been around for 20 plus years. I was around when Facebook started for advertising and PPC. So I've sort of seen a lot. And this is wild. This is absolutely wild.
It's really about like threading that needle as we're seeing the transition happening in real time. And Brooke, I love the analogy of building the plane while flying it, because it's exactly what it feels like, and trying to tread this balance of, even I think with just respect to your website. And I'm getting a visceral reaction to, the content stuffing, like keyword stuffing of yesteryear. And with the same kind of thing, in trying to the recommendations that we've received with respect to, SEO, and some part is, you have to have all of this information displayed in this way within your site so that the LLMs can read it and feed it back. And it's just like, whoa, 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 where's the tipping point between us catering primarily again to humans engaging with our site and with our brand in the digital space and in the real world, and at what point does that the balance tip to be more with the LLMs and chat agents, and nobody really knows. And so I think, designing with that openness and flexibility in mind, and not to, bring it back to this same point again, but I feel maybe anchored in some way, shape, or form at with the work that we're doing at Sportball, in the sense that we are building so much internally. And I know that not everybody can do that, but trying to take back control of at least, some of the core components of the stack, so that when it comes to deploying AI as an effective tool, it's not the tool itself that we're, buying from a vendor, but that we are deploying it within our network to basically, fill the gaps that we can't. And we were talking about the challenge of marketing and operations and the disconnect. Like, how do you merge those pieces? And I think, you can do that pretty easily, I think, with AI tools in the very near future. We're doing some of it now by having all of those systems internally talking to each other. So I'm very excited by the process in which we'll be able to use AI. And I think as franchise brands, we actually stand to benefit in an outsized way, versus the average individual brand, just because of the time savings and the efficiency across multi-unit locations. So I think there's something really interesting there. So I'm excited, and also share, terrifying.
I love it. Liz, anything on your end on the AI space, or things that you guys as a brand are focusing on to assist franchisees or help operations in the tech stack?
I think I'm an AI enthusiast. I love it. I think it's fabulous. Don't get me wrong. But I think as we're going through and looking at our different tools, and when I'm, assessing new tools, I feel like AI is just like a really exciting buzzword in a lot of tools.
Yep.
Where, they maybe are increasing prices, or they're increasing offerings, and they're like, and we have AI. And you're like, that's awesome. Everyone has AI. What does it really do? And how does that impact your tool? How is it going to impact me as the user? So I think, like, my main thing with AI right now is, yes, I use it every day. But when I'm looking at it integrating into my tool, or looking at a tool that has it as an integration, is like, so what? What does it actually do? Because some tools are going to use AI in a way that, like, is going to completely blow your mind in a game-changing way. And some tools are just kind of tacking it on because everybody else has it.
Yeah.
So I think that's just how I feel about AI in this ecosystem right now.
I think that's very fair. I think that
I've definitely been part of demos where I've seen,
Yes.
like, look at our AI capabilities, and I'm like, please don't show that to anybody else.
Yes,
I'm not a great sell.
yes. I'm like, that's a fabulous AI tool, but, like, you can also search that in the, I don't know. So it's just, I think it's a fabulous add-on if it does what your industry, what your brand is looking for it to accomplish.
If it changes behavior.
There you go.
love it. That's good. Amazing. We are very close to time, but I did want to give each of you one last chance to just give one primary piece of advice to franchise marketers or brands that are reevaluating their current systems today. I think more are reevaluating than not. And so what would be that one nugget that you would share with them on a LinkedIn post or in a comment that would help them to kind of guide them in the process? Brooke, I would love to start with you.
I think, and this is maybe more of a philosophical answer, but AI should make you faster and smarter. It should not replace thinking. And I don't want people to lose sight of that. I feel like as a society, we are taking what AI says as gospel and forgetting to have critical thought. And so, like, we still have to, have discernment when we're interviewing these partners and be like, yeah, that's great. But, and so like, what's it going to do for me? And so to your point, Liz, like, and Laura, like, and so you've got AI, but tell me, I've got to use my brain too and like make sure that it's right for the system. So I guess just a cautionary tale to be like, it's not the end all be all, but it can definitely make things move faster and smarter if the foundation set is solid.
I love it. Awesome. Laura, I will throw it over to you next.
Yeah, I think mine comes off the heels of the recent experience and like on the other side of breaking a lot of things is, be brave. Don't be afraid. If you know that your business needs something and it is foundational to the future success of your business, you owe it, to your team, to all of your franchisees. They may hate you in the short term, but you will find your way back when things start working. And I can attest to that. We had a long slog. We did a rebrand at the same time as a website refresh. Then we built a back-end registration, and it was a lot. But we've fought our way back, and the results are incredible. And so to sit on the other side of that, having that experience on our belt and say, it actually wasn't so bad. And now the opportunities that are available to us from an integration standpoint, we can, afford to be choosy, I think. And so don't be afraid, be bold, and, do the thing that you have to do when you know that it makes sense, and we can, commiserate after the fact, share your stories with me.
I love it. And Liz, you can cap us off.
So I think my bit of advice for anyone that's listening would be that your tech stack, your Martech stack, is going to look different than another company's, and that's okay. I think sometimes in marketing and in a lot of these trends that kind of come up, or these waves of things, you think like you have to have everything everywhere all at once, right? But really understanding what your business does well, where you're really getting your clients from, your Martech stack is going to look different than your neighbors, and it should. So just because everybody else has this new tool that's doing all these great things, that might not be a fit for your business, and that's okay.
I love it.
Snaps for that, Liz.
I know, seriously. Good job. Preach on the Thursday afternoon. I love it. You guys absolutely crushed this. I think I personally learned so much from you guys and your expertise. So I appreciate you all joining and just sharing from the brands you work with and your experiences in the industry. This is an ongoing conversation for sure, but I think a lot of great key ideas to start this process were brought up today. So for brands that are watching, I'm assuming all these little women on the call would love to comment on LinkedIn or answer any questions that you might have from their experience that they talked about. But I appreciate all of you guys joining today, and I'm excited to continue to see all the brands you work with succeed.